Hello, my friend, and welcome to Back When, a sleepy glimpse into a bygone era, where the pace was slower, the memories were vivid, and the times were simpler. Imagine a world where sealing leftovers didn't just keep food fresh, it gave 1.9 million women worldwide a new way to earn income. Tupperware was never just a kitchen tool. It became a symbol of post-war innovation, economic opportunity, and the rise of the Tupperware Party, a network of women who turned simple plastic bowls into something extraordinary. Today, you'll find Tupperware in nearly 70 countries, and even in the Smithsonian, a quiet testament to its impact on everyday life. But before it became a household name, Tupperware had to solve a problem that every family faced at home. Chapter 1. The simple problem that started it all. In kitchens across America during the late 1940s, daily routines revolved around making the most of every meal. The war had left its mark, and families watched the groceries closely, hoping to keep food from spoiling before it could be eaten. There was a sense of carefulness. Each potato, each leftover slice of roast, was meant to stretch a little further. Yet, despite all that effort, food waste remained a stubborn problem. Old solutions like wax paper or tin foil only offered a temporary fix. Bread dried out, stews soured, and half-eaten pies grew stale on the counter. Even glass jars, though reliable for canning, were heavy and prone to breaking. The promise of a better way hung in the air, just out of reach. This was a time when thrift wasn't just a habit, it was a necessity. The memory of ration books and shortages lingered, and the idea of wasting food felt almost like a personal failure. Housewives took pride in stretching meals, and every trick to keep food fresh was passed along from neighbor to neighbor. Still, there was no simple answer for how to keep leftovers from spoiling. The kitchen, for all its warmth and bustle, was a place where the battle against waste was fought every day. It's in this setting that Earl Tupper's story begins. He was a quiet, thoughtful man with a fascination for how things worked. Tupper had grown up in modest circumstances, taking on odd jobs before finding his calling in the world of chemistry and materials. During the war, he worked at a plastics factory, a place filled with the sharp sense of new inventions and the hum of machines. Plastics were still new. People saw them as cheap or unreliable, a far cry from the sturdy glass and metal they trusted in their homes. But Tupper saw something different. He believed that plastic, if properly refined, could become a material of the future. One day, as he worked with molds and materials in his Leominster, Massachusetts shop, Tupper found himself studying the lid of a paint can. He noticed how the lid snapped down, forming a seal so tight that nothing could escape or get in. That moment stuck with him. If he could bring that same airtight seal to the world of food storage, he thought, it might change everything. He began experimenting with polyethylene, a plastic that was both durable and light. The early results were far from perfect. Some batches were brittle, others smelled odd, and many refused to hold their shape. Still, Tupper pressed on, tweaking formulas late into the night after countless tries. He developed a new material he called poly-T. It was smooth, light, and free of the flaws that had made earlier plastics so unappealing. With poly-T, he could mold containers that felt pleasant to the touch and looked clean and modern. In 1946, Tupper introduced his first product, the Wonder Bowl. It wasn't just another container. It was the start of something new. The Wonder Bowl's real breakthrough was its lid, inspired by that paint can. The lid snapped on with a firm press, creating an airtight seal that kept air out and freshness in. Tupper patented this burping seal in 1949, a simple but ingenious detail that made all the difference. To close it, you pressed down the rim and gently lifted one edge to let out the air. A little ritual that would soon become familiar in kitchens everywhere. It was light, unbreakable, and easy to clean. Its design was sleek, with rounded edges and a subtle sheen that set it apart from the heavy glass jars and flimsy foil wraps people were used to. Most importantly, it worked. Food stayed fresh for days, and leftovers could be packed away without worry. The Wonder Bowl promised not just convenience, but a sense of security. Families could save money, waste less, and make the most of what they had. Yet, even with all its promise, the Wonder Bowl didn't find its audience right away. Tupperware first appeared on department store shelves in 1946, nestled among other kitchen goods. But instead of drawing crowds, the bowls often sat untouched. Shoppers walked past, unsure what to make of these new plastic containers. Part of the problem was that plastic itself was still unfamiliar. People wondered if it was safe for food, or if it would last as long as the glass and metal they already trusted. The Wonder Bowl's unique lid added another layer of confusion. Without a demonstration, most customers didn't understand how to use the burping seal. The lid didn't simply snap on. It required a little technique, a gentle press and a subtle twist to lock in the freshness. Without seeing it in action, many people assumed it was just another plastic dish. Tupper soon realized that the Wonder Bowl's strengths, its airtight seal and new material, were also its greatest hurdles. Department store clerks rarely took the time to explain how it worked, and the packaging alone couldn't convey its special qualities. Customers would pick up the bowl, try to force the lid on, and set it back down when it didn't behave like the containers they knew. The benefits of the Wonder Bowl were real, but invisible to anyone who hadn't seen the demonstration. Tupperware's quiet revolution was hidden in plain sight. Still, Tupper believed in his invention. He knew that if people could just see the Wonder Bowl in use, if they could hear the soft pop of air escaping as the lid sealed, they would understand. But in those early days the shelves remained full, and the promise of a fresher kitchen seemed to fade into the background noise of everyday life. The story of Tupperware's beginnings is a reminder that even the best ideas sometimes need a little help to be understood. It's not always enough to solve a problem. You have to show people how your solution works. As the Wonder Bowl waited quietly in stores, the next chapter of its journey was about to unfold. One that would depend not just on innovation, but on a new way of reaching people where they lived. Chapter 2. Why no one wanted Tupperware at first. When Tupperware first appeared in stores in 1946, it seemed like the answer to a problem every family faced. The Wonder Bowl was airtight, lightweight, and promised to keep food fresh in a way that felt almost futuristic. But for all its promise, Tupperware didn't fly off the shelves. The reality was more complicated. Shoppers felt uneasy about bringing plastic into their kitchens. Glass, metal, and fabric had a kind of quiet authority, reliable, time-tested, and familiar. Plastic, on the other hand, was new and a little bit strange. Many people associated it with an oily feel or a chemical smell, and they worried it might not be safe for food. Earl Tupper's polyte material was different, but that wasn't obvious to the average shopper. Instead, they saw a plastic bowl sitting next to the sturdy jars and plates they'd always trusted, and most decided to leave it behind. Even those willing to give Tupperware a chance often left confused. The Wonder Bowl's burping seal was a clever invention, but it wasn't self-explanatory. The lid didn't just snap on. It needed to be pressed down and then burped to release excess air. Without a demonstration, most people didn't understand how to use it. They'd try to force the lid on, find it didn't fit the way they expected, and return it to the shelf. Some bought a bowl, struggled with the lid at home, and brought it back to the store, convinced it was defective. The very thing that made Tupperware special, its airtight seal, became a stumbling block. The instructions on the box weren't enough. People needed to see the lid in action, to hear that gentle pop of air, and to understand why it mattered. Traditional retail stores weren't set up to offer that kind of experience. Tupperware sat in neat rows, silent and misunderstood. There were no demonstrations, no one to answer questions, and no way to show how the product solved a real problem. The department store model worked for familiar things, china, linens, or cookware you already knew how to use. But Tupperware needed something different. It needed someone to guide people through that first moment of uncertainty, to show them how this new material and unique lid could make life easier. Earl Tupper tried selling his invention through catalogs in department stores, hoping the product would speak for itself. But as the returns piled up and sales lagged, he realized the limitations of this approach. The Wonder Bowl wasn't just another kitchen gadget. It was a new way of thinking about food storage, and that was something a price tag or a shelf display couldn't explain. So, Tupper quietly pulled Tupperware for most retail stores and began searching for a way to help people understand what made his product different. It was around this time that Brownie Wise entered the picture. Wise was a divorced single mother from Detroit who knew what it meant to make do and to look for new opportunities. She'd worked as a sales representative for Stanley Home Products, a company that relied on home demonstrations to sell its goods. Wise understood the rhythms of home life and the importance of trust between neighbors. She knew that a kitchen wasn't just a place to cook, it was the heart of the home, a place where friendships were built and stories were shared. When Wise first encountered Tupperware in 1949, she saw something others had missed. She recognized that the product's real strength wasn't in its material, or even its clever lid, but in the way it could be brought to life through demonstration. Wise started her own business, inviting women to gather in backyards or living rooms for what she called patio parties. There, she showed how to use the Wonder Bowl, pressing down the lid and lifting the edge to let out the air. She passed the bowls around so guests could feel the smooth plastic and test the seal for themselves. Questions were answered on the spot, and doubts faded as people saw the product work right in front of them. These gatherings quickly became more than just opportunities to sell kitchenware. They were social events, a chance for women to step out of their routines and spend time together. At a time when many women felt isolated in their roles as homemakers, the parties offered a sense of connection and purpose. Wise understood the value of these moments. She encouraged women to share their own tips for saving food and running a household, turning each party into a space where everyone had something to contribute. In this setting, Tupperware lost its strangeness. It became something familiar, even comforting, a tool that fit right into the daily rhythms of home life. Wise also saw the potential for something bigger. She began recruiting other women to host and lead parties, building a network of salespeople who understood the needs and concerns of their friends and neighbors. She offered training and support, teaching women how to demonstrate the burping seal and how to answer questions about plastic. For many, selling Tupperware was their first experience earning their own money. It was a small step toward independence, and it brought a sense of pride that was often missing from the unpaid work of running a household. The party model worked because it made room for learning and for laughter. In a friend's living room, there was no rush, no pressure, and no fear of asking questions. The product could be handled and tested, and every demonstration felt like a small performance. a bit of practical magic that turned leftovers into something worth saving. Wise's approach was gentle and reassuring. She didn't push or persuade. She invited people to see for themselves. Over time, skepticism gave way to curiosity, and curiosity led to excitement. Women who had once eyed plastic with suspicion now found themselves showing off their new bowls and sharing the secret of the burping seal with others. As word spread, Tupperware parties became a regular feature of suburban life. They offered something more than a sales pitch. They were a reason to gather, to share stories, and to support one another. The parties gave women a place to shine, to take on new roles as leaders and entrepreneurs. For many, it was the first time they'd been recognized for their skills and their ability to bring people together. The kitchen, once a place of solitary work, became a stage for community and for possibility. The shift from retail shelves to living rooms changed everything for Tupperware. Sales soared, and the Wonder Bowl finally found its audience. Not because it was displayed in a store, but because it was passed from hand to hand in a neighbor's home. Brownie Wise's insight and determination gave the product a new life, and in doing so, she opened the door for thousands of women to find new meaning and new opportunities in their everyday routines. The story of Tupperware's early struggles and eventual success is a reminder that sometimes the right idea just needs the right setting. A kitchen table, a pot of coffee, and a circle of friends can do what a store shelf never could. In those quiet gatherings, something ordinary became something special, and a simple plastic bowl helped shape a new kind of community, one that would soon grow far beyond what anyone could have imagined. Chapter 3. The Tupperware Party. More than just a sales pitch. Picture a quiet afternoon in a 1950s neighborhood. The phone rings, and a neighbor invites you over. There's no promise of anything grand, just a gathering, a bit of cake, and something new to see. You arrive to find a handful of familiar faces, a table set with bright plastic bowls, and a sense of anticipation in the air. This isn't just a visit, it's a Tupperware party, and it's about to change the way you think about leftovers and friendship. The heart of the Tupperware party was always the demonstration. The dealer, usually a friend or neighbor, would pass around a Wonder Bowl. The plastic felt different, smoother and sturdier than what most people expected. Then came the part everyone waited for, the lid. With a gentle press and a careful lift of one corner, you'd hear a soft, that little sound was proof that the bowl was sealed tight, keeping air out and freshness in. It wasn't complicated, but it was new. Seeing the process up close erased doubts. You could touch the bowl, try the seal yourself, and ask questions right there in the living room. The demonstration wasn't just about selling a product, it was about building trust. These parties weren't just about food storage. For many women, they were a welcome break from the routines of home life. There was laughter, a bit of coffee, and the comfort of being together. The focus stayed on the product in the demonstration, but the real draw was the chance to gather and share stories. The atmosphere was relaxed. You didn't have to dress up or put on a show. It was about neighbors helping neighbors, finding small joys in everyday moments, and learning something new together. Brownie Wise understood this better than anyone. In 1951, Earl Tupper hired her to lead the company's new direction. She founded Tupperware Home Parties Inc., shaping the party system that would become its trademark. Wise had learned from her time at Stanley Home Products that women liked to buy from people they trusted. She saw that a living room was the perfect place to explain what made Tupperware different. The party wasn't just a clever sales tactic. It was a way to bring people together, to make the unfamiliar feel familiar. Wise's approach was simple, but it worked. She encouraged dealers to make the demonstration hands-on and friendly. The burping seal became a small ritual, something everyone could try. Questions were answered on the spot, and guests could see for themselves how the bowls worked. There was no pressure to buy, just an invitation to be part of something new. The parties felt personal, and that made all the difference. People trusted their friends, and that trust turned into sales. Hosting a party brought its own rewards. Women who volunteered as hostesses received small gifts, or a free piece of Tupperware. But the real benefit was something less tangible. Hosting meant organizing the event, inviting friends, and helping run the show. It was a chance to take on a new role, to step into a space where your efforts mattered. For many, it was the first taste of leading something outside the home, even if it was just for an afternoon. For the dealers, the party plan offered something even more important, a way to earn money on their own terms. Tupperware didn't require anyone to work set hours or leave their families. Instead, women could choose when to host parties, how many to schedule, and how much they wanted to sell. The job fit around their lives, not the other way around. Some sold a few pieces each month for extra spending money. Others built thriving businesses, recruiting new dealers and hosting parties every week. The flexibility meant that women could participate in the workforce while still caring for their homes and families. The party model also recognized achievement. Top sellers didn't just get a pat on the back. They earned diamond rings, trips, and sometimes even new cars. These rewards were more than just prizes. They were a sign that women's efforts were valued and recognized. For many, it was the first time their work outside the home brought public recognition. The sense of pride and accomplishment went far beyond the paycheck. Tupperware parties quickly became a fixture in suburban life. They created a network of women who supported each other, shared advice, and celebrated each other's successes. The gatherings helped build friendships and strengthened the bonds of community. In a time when many women felt isolated in their roles at home, the parties provided a space to connect and belong. The impact of Brownie Wise's leadership was easy to see. Under her guidance, Tupperware sales soared, the company grew rapidly, and the party model became a blueprint for other businesses. Companies like Mary Kay and Amway would later follow the same path, turning everyday consumers into brand ambassadors through home parties and direct sales. But it was Tupperware that showed how powerful this approach could be, not just for selling products, but for changing lives. Wise herself became a symbol of what was possible. She was the first woman to appear on the cover of Business Week, a rare achievement in her time. Her story inspired many women to try something new, to believe they could succeed on their own terms. The party system she built gave women practical skills, public speaking, organizing events, managing money, and helped them gain confidence in their abilities. The ripple effects went beyond individual dealers. Tupperware parties helped shift the way people thought about women's roles. They showed that women could be leaders, entrepreneurs, and business owners, even while managing households. The parties were a gentle challenge to the idea that a woman's place was only in the home. Instead, they offered a model where women's work was visible, valued, and celebrated at their core. The parties remained simple. They were about showing a product, sharing a cup of coffee, and enjoying each other's company. But through those small acts, something larger took shape. Women found new ways to support themselves and each other. They built confidence and learned new skills. They created a network that stretched across neighborhoods and cities, connecting people who might never have met otherwise. Tupperware parties were more than just a way to sell bowls. They were a way for women to step outside their routines, to try something new, and to find meaning in their work. The living room became a place for learning and growth, and the kitchen table was transformed into a center of opportunity. As the 1950s moved on, the women who hosted and attended these parties became central to Tupperware's story. Their efforts and achievements shaped the company's success and helped change the conversation about what women could do. The quiet gatherings, the shared laughter, and the soft burp of a well-sealed bowl all pointed to something bigger, a shift that would reach far beyond the walls of any one home. Chapter 4: The Women Who Built a Quiet Empire. Behind the scenes of these gatherings, a quiet but determined group of women built something lasting. The women who led Tupperware parties in the 1950s were not just selling bowls and lids. They were creating a new kind of work, one that fit into the rhythms of daily life and offered something many had never experienced: a sense of ownership and pride. Most of these women had spent their lives focused on home and family. In that era, the idea of a woman earning her own income was still unusual. Jobs for women outside the home were scarce, and those that did exist were often limited to low-wage positions. Many women wanted more. The tradition set a clear boundary. Tupperware offered a way to cross that line without leaving the comfort of their homes. The parties took place in living rooms and kitchens, where women felt at ease. They could invite friends and neighbors, pour coffee, and talk about the best way to keep bread fresh. Brownie Wise, a former sales representative for Stanley Home Products, understood this world well. When she joined Tupperware in 1951 as vice president of marketing, she shaped the company's direct sales approach into something familiar and welcoming. Wise believed that women could be both the ideal customers and the ideal salespeople for Tupperware. She saw that these parties allowed women to use their natural skills, hospitality, conversation, and organization, in a way that had real value. The Tupperware party model was simple, but it was also revolutionary. Women could work as much or as little as they wanted. Some hosted a party every week, while others held just a few each year. The work fit around family schedules and school pickups. For many, this flexibility was as important as the money they earned. The average earnings for most consultants remained modest. By 2018 standards, just $653 a year for the majority, with about 94% remaining at the bottom of the sales pyramid. Still, even a small income could make a difference in a household budget, and the sense of achievement was often just as valuable as the paycheck. At the top of the Tupperware world, however, were women whose efforts brought them national recognition. Take Sylvia Boyd, for example. She began as a dealer, hosting parties in her local community. Through hard work and a knack for connecting with people, she rose through the ranks and was honored at the company's annual Jubilee event. There, top sellers like Sylvia received diamond rings and other lavish rewards, celebrated on stage in front of their peers. These prizes were more than just glittering tokens. They were public acknowledgement that women's work mattered. For many, it was the first time their abilities were recognized outside their own homes. Brownie Wise made sure these successes were visible. She believed in celebrating her saleswomen, not just with gifts, but with recognition and encouragement. The company's regular newsletter featured stories of women who had achieved new milestones. At the Grand Jubilee conventions, women gathered from across the country to share their experiences, swap tips, and cheer each other on. The events were glamorous, with women dressing up and stepping into the spotlight, if only for an evening. For some, it was the highlight of the year, a rare chance to be seen and celebrated for their work. Wise's leadership style was both supportive and competitive. She created a culture where women helped each other succeed, but also strove to reach new heights. If someone needed help picking up merchandise or planning a party, There was always someone in the network willing to lend a hand. The Tupperware community became a source of friendship and support, a place where women could share their challenges and celebrate their victories together. But Wise's story also carried a note of caution. Despite her success in building the Tupperware empire, she was ousted from the company in 1958 and left without stock or a share in the business she had helped grow. Her departure marked a turning point for Tupperware, but her legacy remained. The system she built continued to give women across the country a way to earn money, gain confidence, and connect with others. The Tupperware Party was more than a sales pitch. It was a way for women to step into new roles. They became leaders, organizers, and business owners, all within the familiar setting of their own homes. The work was often challenging. There were setbacks, slow weeks, and the pressure to keep up with quotas. Yet, the rewards, both tangible and intangible, kept women coming back. A diamond ring or a new car was nice, but the real prize was the community, the sense of purpose, and the knowledge that their efforts mattered for most women. The reality of Tupperware work was modest. The majority earned small amounts, and only a few reached the top. But even those who made just a little extra money found value in the experience. They learned to speak in front of groups, to manage their time, and to set goals. Many discovered talents they hadn't known they had. The supportive network of fellow dealers helped women feel less isolated, especially in an era when many spent long days at home. Tupperware parties also offered a rare break from routine. The events were social, a chance to dress up a little, share a laugh, and enjoy each other's company. For a few hours, the living room became a stage, and the kitchen table a place of possibility. Women found ways to support each other, whether by sharing sales tips or helping with childcare, so a friend could host a party. These gatherings helped build lasting friendships and a sense of community that stretched far beyond the products on display. The party model did not challenge the era's social expectations head-on. Instead, it worked within them, offering a way for women to participate in the growing consumer economy without leaving their traditional roles behind. The work was seen as an extension of homemaking, not a replacement for it. Yet, over time, the boundaries softened. Women who might never have considered themselves business-minded began to see new possibilities for themselves. The Tupperware network was both competitive and supportive. Women wanted to be recognized for their achievements, but they also rooted for each other's success. The newsletter and conventions helped keep the community connected, while the reward system encouraged everyone to strive for more. For many, the experience was transformative. It brought confidence, pride, and a sense of belonging. Brownie Wise's approach made Tupperware feel like more than just a job. She encouraged positivity, celebrated effort, and made sure that everyone felt included. The business grew quickly, spreading from one living room to the next, until it became a national phenomenon. The company's success inspired other businesses to adopt the home party model, but Tupperware's focus on women's empowerment set it apart. The story of these women is not just about sales numbers or prizes. It is about finding a place in a changing world. Tupperware parties gave women a way to earn money and build confidence, all while staying close to home. The work was often ordinary, but the results were extraordinary in their own quiet way. Women who had once felt invisible found themselves at the center of something new. As the years went by, Tupperware parties became woven into the fabric of American life. The women who built this quiet empire did so with determination, creativity, and a sense of community. They brought something new to their neighborhoods, and in doing so, changed the way people thought about women's roles. The legacy of their work can still be felt today, in the confidence and independence that so many women now take for granted. Looking back, It's clear that Tupperware was more than just a set of colorful containers. It was a chance for women to claim a small piece of the world for themselves. Each party, each sale, and each moment of recognition helped shape a generation. The living rooms and kitchens where these women worked became places of change, filled with the quiet strength of those who dared to try something new. The Tupperware story soon became closely tied to the changing shape of American life. As families moved, neighborhoods grew, and new communities took root. The next chapter would see Tupperware's place in a world that was expanding in every direction, bringing with it new dreams, new challenges, and a fresh sense of possibility. Chapter 5. Tupperware's role in the rise of suburbia. As the 1940s gave way to a new decade, daily life in America began to look different for many families. The end of World War II brought an energy that pushed people outward from crowded city apartments into neighborhoods of neat houses and quiet streets. These new suburbs weren't just a place to live. They represented hope, stability, and the promise of something better. The GI Bill made home ownership possible for millions of returning veterans, and soon, the edges of cities were dotted with rows of identical houses, each with its own patch of grass and a kitchen waiting to be filled. In the heart of these homes, the kitchen started to take on a new meaning. It was no longer just a place to cook. It became the center of family life, a place where meals were planned, groceries were unpacked, and routines were shaped. The baby boom, beginning in 1946, meant more children at the table, more lunches to pack, and more leftovers to manage. The average family had more mouths to feed, and more reasons to stretch every meal just a bit further. This shift brought with it a need for practical solutions, ways to keep food fresh, save time, and make the most of what was on hand. Between 1945 and 1949, millions of refrigerators were sold, changing the way families stored and preserved food. These new appliances were bigger and colder than anything that came before, but they also created new challenges. How could families store all those leftovers, keep produce crisp, and make sure nothing went to waste? The answer, for many, came in the form of a simple plastic bowl. Tupperware entered the scene at just the right moment. Earl Tupper's first product, the Wonder Bowl, arrived in 1946, right as suburban families were settling into their new routines. The bowl's lightweight, stackable design fit perfectly into the shelves and drawers of modern kitchens. The airtight burping seal kept food fresher for longer, helping families save money and reduce waste. In a time when every penny counted and every meal mattered, this small innovation found a welcome home. For homemakers, Tupperware offered more than a convenient way to store leftovers. It promised order in a world that was often busy and unpredictable. The containers could be stacked neatly in the fridge or pantry, making it easier to plan meals and keep track of what was on hand. Bread stayed soft, fruit stayed crisp, and last night's dinner could be packed up for tomorrow's lunch. Families found comfort in the little things, knowing there would be something to eat after a long day, or that nothing would be wasted if plans changed. The appeal of Tupperware went beyond its function. In the 1950s, advertising showed kitchens gleaming with new appliances, countertops lined with pastel-colored containers, and women smiling as they organized their shelves. These images weren't just about selling a product. They were about selling a way of life. Tupperware became a symbol of modernity and progress, something that fit right in with the optimism of the era. It was affordable enough for most families, but special enough to feel like a small luxury. As suburbs grew, so did the need for ways to connect with neighbors. Moving into a new neighborhood could be lonely, especially for women who spent much of their time at home. The Tupperware Party became a solution to this quiet isolation. It was a reason to invite people over, share a cup of coffee, and talk about everyday problems. The parties were informal and friendly, often held around the kitchen table or in a sunny living room. There were no strict rules, just an invitation to come, see something new, and maybe leave with a container or two. At the heart of every party was the demonstration. The Tupperware dealer, usually a neighbor or friend, would show how to press the lid onto the bowl and release the air with a gentle burp. Guests could try it themselves, ask questions, and listen to stories about how the containers had made life easier for others. The atmosphere was relaxed. There was laughter, a bit of advice, and sometimes a recipe or two shared among friends. These gatherings were about more than just sales. They were about building trust and community. For many women, the chance to host or attend a Tupperware party was a welcome break from a routine of housework. It was a time to dress up a little, share news, and feel seen by others. The parties also offered an opportunity to earn money or small rewards, something that was rare for women at the time. The work fit easily into the rhythms of family life, and even a modest income could help with household expenses or provide a bit of extra spending money. For some, success at Tupperware meant recognition at company events or the chance to travel, but for most, it was the simple pleasure of being part of something bigger than themselves. The Tupperware party plan was perfectly matched to the realities of suburban life. Larger homes meant more space to entertain. Bigger kitchens meant more shelves to fill. The growing number of children meant more food to store and more leftovers to save. The format of the parties, relaxed, social, and focused on practical demonstrations, made it easy for women to invite friends and neighbors, turning the sale of a kitchen container into a community event. The model also relied on a certain level of household prosperity. Families needed to have enough food and enough space to make owning multiple containers worthwhile, so Tupperware quickly became a marker of stability and comfort. This connection between product and place was no accident. Tupperware's design, with its smooth shapes and soft colors, matched the aesthetic of the new suburban home. The containers didn't just fit in the fridge, they looked right sitting on the counter or tucked into a cupboard. The brand expanded with the suburbs, reaching beyond the United States as new markets opened in Europe in the 1960s. The global spread of Tupperware mirrored the spread of suburban ideals: order, efficiency, and a sense of belonging. Tupperware's success was also rooted in the way it challenged expectations. The company was built around women, sold to women, demonstrated by women, and managed in large part by women. In an era when opportunities outside the home were limited, Tupperware parties gave women a chance to take on new roles and earn their own income. The gatherings were as much about empowerment as they were about food storage. Women learned to speak in front of groups, organize events, and manage money. They built networks of support and friendship that reached across neighborhoods and, eventually, across countries. The suburban expansion of the 1950s and 1960s provided the perfect backdrop for Tupperware's rise. The need for efficient, reliable storage solutions was real, and the company's direct sales approach brought those solutions right into the heart of the home. The parties became rituals, woven into the fabric of daily life. They offered a break from routine, a reason to gather, and a way to make the most of what families had. Tupperware didn't just fill a need, it created a sense of possibility and pride. Looking back, it's easy to see why Tupperware became such a fixture in suburban homes. The containers themselves were simple, but they answered a real need. They fit the spaces and the schedules of busy families, and they offered a sense of control in a world that was always changing. The parties too were more than just sales events. They were a way to connect, to learn, and to find meaning in the everyday tasks of running a household. Tupperware's influence reached far beyond the kitchen. The brand became a symbol of a certain kind of life, one that valued order, efficiency, and community. The containers were passed from hand to hand, from one home to another, each one carrying with it a bit of hope for a better day. In the end, Tupperware's place in the rise of suburbia was about more than plastic bowls and airtight seals. It was about the ways we gather, share, and make a home. As the years went on, people began to notice that Tupperware was more than just a practical solution. Its design, the feel of the plastic, the fit of the lid, the way it looked on a shelf, became part of its appeal. Some even began to see it as a small work of art, a quiet example of how thoughtful design could change daily life. The story of Tupperware's place in the home was just the beginning. Its place in the world of design was about to take center stage. Chapter 6. Tupperware as a design icon. If you've ever reached into a cupboard and pulled out a Tupperware bowl, you might not have thought much about it. The bowl feels light in your hand, the lid snaps on with a soft, satisfying burp, and it all seems so ordinary. But this simple act is part of a story that began in the late 1940s, when the idea of a plastic food container was anything but ordinary. Back then, most kitchens were filled with heavy glass jars, battered tin boxes, and paper wrappings that barely kept food fresh. Tupperware offered something different, a bowl that was sleek, featherweight, and durable, made from a new kind of plastic called poly-T. It was a quiet revolution, and the design behind it would soon be recognized as a modern icon. Earl Tupper, the inventor behind Tupperware, saw possibilities in plastic that others missed. He wanted to create something that was both useful and beautiful, something that made life easier without sacrificing style. His first product, the Wonder Bowl, was more than just a container. It had smooth, clean lines and a translucent body that let you see what was inside at a glance. The bowl felt sturdy yet light, and it stood out from the clunky utilitarian storage options of the time. Tupper's design choices were intentional and thoughtful, from the gentle curve of the bowl to the way it stacked neatly in a cupboard. Color played a big part in Tupperware's appeal. While many plastics of the era were dull or industrial, Tupperware came in bright raspberry pinks, cheerful oranges, and jewel-like sapphire or frosted crystal tones. These colors brought a sense of cheer to the kitchen, making even leftovers feel a little more special. It was the kind of detail that made people want to leave their containers out on the counter instead of hiding them away. In 1947, Star House Beautiful described Tupperware as fine art for 39 cents. A nod to how the bowls brought a sense of modern design within reach of everyday families. But the real magic of Tupperware was in its lid. Inspired by the airtight seal of paint cans, Tupper designed a patented double-sealed lid that locked in freshness and kept air and moisture out. This was a major innovation in kitchen storage. The lid didn't just snap on, it required a special burping technique. Press down around the rim, lift one edge, and you'd hear a gentle pop as the air escaped. That sound became Tupperware's signature, a small but reassuring sign that food would stay fresh for days. The seal was so effective that it set Tupperware apart from every other container on the market. At first, though, this clever design confused many people. Without a demonstration, the lid could be tricky to use. Some early customers thought the bowls were defective when they struggled to get the seal just right. This challenge led to the rise of the Tupperware Party, a new way to show off the product's features in a relaxed, social setting. Brownie Wise, who led the Tupperware Home Parties division, saw that in-home demonstrations could turn confusion into excitement. She encouraged women to invite friends over, share coffee and conversation, and watch the burping lid in action. The parties became a cornerstone of Tupperware's success, blending direct sales with a sense of community. Tupperware's design was more than just a clever solution to a household problem. It reflected the spirit of the post-war era, when Americans were eager for products that promised efficiency, cleanliness, and a touch of style. Kitchens were becoming the heart of the home, and people wanted tools that made daily life easier. Tupperware fit right in. Its modern look, practical function, and affordable price made it a welcome addition to the new suburban lifestyle. The Wonder Bowl and its successors soon caught the attention of the design world. By the 1950s, industrial design was gaining recognition as an important field, and Tupperware was held up as a prime example of how thoughtful design could transform everyday objects. The containers were praised for their simplicity and elegance, and they became a model for how good design could improve daily routines. Tupperware's influence spread beyond the kitchen. Its use of color, shape, and stackable form inspired other companies to rethink how household goods could look and function. Museums and cultural institutions began to take notice as well. The Smithsonian's National Museum of American History now holds more than 100 pieces of Tupperware, dating from 1946 to 1999. The collection includes the original Wonder Bowl, a piece that marks the starting point of a long design journey. Tupperware's presence in 1946 to 1999. The collection includes the original Wonder Bowl, a piece that marks the starting point of a long design journey. The museum's recognition places Tupperware alongside other icons of American design, showing that innovation doesn't always come from grand gestures. Sometimes, it's found in the things we use every day. Tupperware's journey from kitchen cupboard to museum display didn't happen by accident. Its design was celebrated in books, magazines, and even on television. PBS's Star American Experience featured Tupperware as a design icon of post-war modernity, highlighting how its look and function captured the optimism of the era. The containers became a symbol of progress, a way for families to bring a bit of the future into their homes. The impact of Tupperware's design went far beyond its own products. The idea that storage containers could be attractive as well as practical led to a wave of innovation in household goods. Companies began to offer more colorful, thoughtfully designed items, and the notion of good design for everyone took hold. Tupperware helped shift the way people thought about the objects they used every day, making room for beauty and utility to exist side by side. Still, Tupperware's design was not without its challenges. The very feature that made it unique, the airtight seal, required a demonstration to be fully understood. Without someone to show how to use the lid, many people missed out on the benefits. Brownie Wise's party model solved this problem, turning product education into a social event. The parties allowed people to see, touch, and try the containers for themselves. They could ask questions, share tips, and leave with a sense of confidence. The model was so effective that it became a template for other direct sales companies, changing the way products were introduced to the public. Over the decades, Tupperware's design remained remarkably consistent. New shapes and colors were introduced, but the core principles stayed the same: durability, functionality, and a sense of style. The containers adapted to changing tastes and needs, but they never lost the qualities that made them stand out in the first place. Even as trends shifted and new competitors entered the market, Tupperware's design continued to win praise for its balance of form and function. Today, when you see a Tupperware bowl on a kitchen shelf or in a museum case, you're looking at more than just a piece of plastic. You're seeing a piece of design history, a reminder of how one person's vision can change the way we live. The smooth lines, bright colors, and clever seal are all part of a larger story, a story about innovation, community, and the search for a better way to do everyday things. The legacy of Tupperware's design is still felt in homes around the world. Its containers have become a kind of shorthand for freshness and reliability, and the burp of the lid remains a familiar sound in many kitchens. The Smithsonian's collection, with its more than 100 pieces, stands as a testament to the enduring importance of thoughtful design. Tupperware's place in American culture is secure, not just because it solved a problem, but because it did so with care, creativity, and attention to detail. Yet the world outside the kitchen has changed. The habits and routines that once made Tupperware parties a fixture of suburban life have shifted. People shop differently, cook differently, and connect with each other in new ways. The design that once felt so modern now faces new questions about relevance and sustainability. Tupperware's reputation as a design icon remains, but the brand must find its place in a landscape that looks very different from the one it helped shape. As we reflect on the bowls and lids that became symbols of an era, it's worth remembering that even the most iconic designs must adapt to survive. Tupperware's story is one of ingenuity and optimism, but it is also a reminder that no invention stands still forever. The challenges of a changing market are never far away, and the next chapter in Tupperware's journey will ask whether its classic design can keep pace with a world that keeps moving forward. Chapter 7. The challenges of a changing market. Change sweeps through every household, sometimes quietly, and sometimes all at once. The kitchens that once buzzed with the excitement of Tupperware parties now echo with a different kind of activity, one shaped by new habits, new tools, and new ways of connecting. The world outside those kitchen windows has shifted, and with it, the way people choose what fills their cupboards and fries. It's hard to imagine now, but there was a time when the Tupperware party was more than just a sales pitch. It was a reason to gather, to share stories, and to learn something new from a trusted neighbor. The demonstration, the gentle press, the pop of the lid felt like a small wonder. But as shopping habits began to change, these gatherings became less common. The pace of life sped up, and the idea of waiting for a party or visiting a neighbor's home to buy a container started to feel out of step with the times. One of the biggest changes came with the rise of online shopping. In 1999, Tupperware launched its first e-commerce website, opening the door for customers to browse and purchase products from the comfort of their own homes. This move marked a significant shift for a company so deeply rooted in personal connection and in-person demonstrations. But the world of e-commerce was already crowded. Online retailers offered a dizzying array of food storage options, often at lower prices and with faster delivery. Brands like Rubbermaid and Ziploc became household staples, their products lining the shelves of supermarkets and arriving in cardboard boxes on doorsteps across the country. The convenience of clicking a button and having a new set of containers delivered the next day was hard to compete with. This new landscape brought with it a flood of choices. For years, Tupperware's appeal lay in its exclusivity and the sense of belonging that came from being part of a community of hosts and guests. Now, anyone could find similar containers with a few taps on their phone. The differences between brands started to blur. Some companies leaned into the trend of disposability, offering single-use containers that could be tossed away after a picnic or a potluck. Others, like Rubbermaid, focused on durability and affordability, creating products that worked just as well for less money. The result was a crowded market, where Tupperware's unique story and design were harder to notice. Alongside these shifts, another challenge began to grow. The very material that had once made Tupperware revolutionary, plastic, was now at the center of a broader conversation about health and the environment. Over the years, concerns about the impact of plastics on both people and the planet became harder to ignore. Reports about microplastics, chemicals leaching into food, and the growing problem of plastic waste filled the news. Many consumers started to rethink their habits, looking for alternatives that felt safer and more sustainable. Glass containers grew in popularity, praised for their simplicity and their promise of being free from harmful chemicals. For some, the idea of storing food in plastic, even a sturdy, reusable one, no longer felt right. Tupperware has not been blind to these concerns. The company has taken steps to address them, working to reduce its environmental impact and reassure customers about the safety of its products. In recent years, Tupperware became an early adopter of circular polymers, using recycled feedstock, Sabix certified circular polymer, in some of its products. This move signaled a commitment to sustainability and an effort to join the larger movement toward responsible manufacturing. The company has also emphasized the durability and reusability of its containers, reminding customers that a single Tupperware bowl can replace hundreds of disposable alternatives over its lifetime. Still, for many shoppers, the association with plastic remains a hurdle. Tupperware's leadership has tried to modernize the brand, expanding its presence in retail stores like Target, and broadening its product range to include new kitchen tools and cooking gadgets. The hope was to reach new audiences, those who might never attend a party but might pick up a container while shopping for groceries or browsing online. Yet these efforts often felt like they came a step too late. By the time Tupperware arrived on store shelves and online marketplaces, competitors had already established deep roots. The brand's once innovative direct sales model, built on self-employed consultants and personal relationships, struggled to keep pace with a world that valued speed and convenience above all else. Financial pressures have mounted as a result. Tupperware's stock price has dropped sharply, and the company has missed key deadlines for financial reporting. The gap between its debt and its market value has grown, raising questions about its long-term viability. Some analysts have speculated that bankruptcy could be on the horizon, a possibility that feels jarring for a company that once symbolized ingenuity and success. The numbers tell a stark story. Tupperware is now worth less than a tenth of its total debt, and the path forward is uncertain. Despite these struggles, Tupperware's leaders continue to look for ways to reconnect with customers and restore the brand's relevance. They point to the company's long history of innovation and its commitment to quality. They highlight the ways Tupperware containers help families reduce food waste and live more sustainably. There is a sense of pride in what the brand has accomplished, and a hope that these values can still matter to today's consumers. But the challenge goes deeper than just business strategy. It's about cultural relevance, about finding a place in the lives of people whose needs and expectations have changed. In the 1950s, Tupperware's story was woven into the fabric of American life. It was about optimism, progress, and the promise of a better tomorrow. The parties were a way to bring people together, to celebrate small victories, and build community. Now, the meaning of community has shifted. People connect in different ways, often through screens and messages rather than face-to-face conversations. The kitchen is still important, but it no longer sits at the center of every home in the same way. Tupperware's journey through these changes is a reflection of the broader shifts in how we live, shop, and think about the things we use every day. The company's efforts to modernize, whether through new products, partnerships, or sustainability initiatives, are part of a larger attempt to stay connected to the world outside its original circle of influence. But the pace of change is relentless, and the competition is fierce. For many families, Tupperware still holds a special place. The bowls and lids passed down from one generation to the next are reminders of meals shared, leftovers saved, and the quiet satisfaction of a well-organized kitchen. The memories of parties, laughter, and friendships linger, even as the world moves on. This emotional connection gives Tupperware a kind of resilience, a chance to find its footing again if it can adapt to the needs of a new era. The next steps for Tupperware will require more than just new products or updated marketing. They will require a willingness to listen to understand what matters to people today, and to find ways to meet those needs without losing sight of what made the brand special in the first place. That might mean embracing new materials, rethinking the role of the kitchen, or finding creative ways to build community in a digital age. It could also mean letting go of some traditions in order to make room for new ones. As Tupperware faces these uncertainties, its story remains one of both challenge and possibility. The journey from living room parties to online storefronts is more than a business tale. It's a reflection of how we all adapt, sometimes reluctantly, to the world as it changes around us. The bowls that once promised freshness and convenience now carry the weight of memory and expectation, standing at the crossroads of tradition and transformation. They are about the way we remember, the way we gather, and the way we shape our daily lives. The questions facing the company are the same ones that face many of us. How do we hold on to what matters while making room for what's new? How do we honor the past without getting stuck in it? The answers are still unfolding, just as they are in every home where a plastic bowl sits quietly on a shelf, waiting to be filled once more. As we think about the place Tupperware has held in our lives, it's worth considering how its journey mirrors the changes in our own kitchens and communities. The story of Tupperware is woven into the story of American life, one of ingenuity, resilience, and the constant search for a better way to do the things that matter most. Chapter 8: Tupperware's reflection of American life. Think back to the routines that shaped daily life: packing lunches, putting away leftovers, or tidying up after a family meal. Tupperware found its way into these small moments, becoming part of the rhythm of home for millions of Americans. By 2007, the brand counted 1.9 million direct sellers worldwide, a testament to how deeply it had woven itself into the fabric of everyday rituals and relationships. Tupperware's beginnings traced to the late 1940s, when American families were ready for something new. The war was over, and the country was changing fast. After years of rationing, people wanted to fill their homes with things that promised ease and a sense of progress. Kitchens became places of possibility, filled with the hum of new appliances and the hope that life would be simpler. Earl Tupper's Wonder Bowl stepped into this world as a practical answer to food waste, but its appeal went beyond utility. The bowl's airtight seal and light modern look captured the spirit of a country eager for innovation. Tupperware's arrival seemed to whisper that the future could be found in ordinary routines. Yet, the story Tupperware tells is not just about technology or convenience. It's about the people who gathered around kitchen tables and turned a simple product into something much bigger. The Tupperware Party, first imagined by Brownie Wise, became a familiar scene across the country. These gatherings looked like any other get-together: a few friends, coffee, a plate of cookies. But they offered new possibilities for women at a time when options were limited. Hosting or attending a party meant stepping into a role that was both familiar and quietly new. Women could earn money, build skills, and find recognition in ways that fit the contours of their daily lives. This sense of empowerment was real for many. Tupperware parties gave women, including those who were pregnant or caring for young children, a way to participate in the workforce without leaving home. Some found pride in organizing events and leading teams, while others valued the chance to contribute to the family budget in small but meaningful ways. The parties became spaces where women could support each other, share advice, and celebrate small successes. For some, Tupperware felt like a gentle step toward independence, a way to claim agency within the boundaries set by society. Of course, not everyone saw Tupperware's rise in the same light. Some critics argued that the party model kept women tied to domestic roles, reinforcing the idea that their contributions belonged in the home. Others, especially those who experienced the parties firsthand, saw the work as a bridge, something that allowed them to move between tradition and change. The truth likely lived somewhere in between. Tupperware offered women a path to empowerment that didn't require them to leave behind the spaces and relationships that defined their days. It was not a revolution in the loudest sense, but it was a shift, one that made room for growth, while honoring the routines of home. Tupperware's influence stretched beyond the walls of the kitchen. As post-war America embraced consumer culture, the brand's party plan became a model for direct sales and multi-level marketing. The idea that friends and neighbors could introduce new products in a relaxed, familiar setting soon spread to other companies, shaping how Americans learned about and bought everything from cosmetics to cleaning supplies. Tupperware's approach normalized the idea of selling through social networks, and its reputation grew as a symbol of both innovation and belonging. The brand's cultural cachet even reached television, with appearances in shows like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, reminding new generations of its role in shaping social life. Design played its own part in Tupperware's story. The Wonder Bowl and its successors reflected the clean lines and soft colors of mid-century modernism. The containers felt at home in the new suburban kitchens, where families gathered for meals and conversation. Their featherweight, pliable plastic was praised as fine art for 39 cents, and their practical beauty earned them a place in the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History. Tupperware's look and feel became part of what it meant to build a home in the post-war era, a small but visible sign that progress and comfort could go hand in hand. But as the years passed, the world around Tupperware changed. Shopping habits shifted, the personal touch of the party gave way to the convenience of stores and later online shopping. The rise of supermarkets and malls made it easy to buy similar products without waiting for a demonstration. Brands like Rubbermaid and Ziploc found their way onto shelves, offering alternatives that were easy to find and often less expensive. The sense of exclusivity that once set Tupperware apart began to fade. Cultural attitudes also evolved. The material that once signaled modernity, plastic, became a subject of concern. Environmental awareness grew, and people started to question the long-term impact of plastics on health and the planet. Tupperware responded by emphasizing the reusability of its products, and by adopting recycled materials like Sabix, certified circular polymer. Still, the association with plastic made it harder for the brand to hold its place as a symbol of progress. Even so, Tupperware's place in American life remains secure in many ways. The brand's story is tied to moments of optimism and change, from the end of the war to the rise of the suburbs. Its containers have passed from one generation to the next, carrying not just food, but memories of family meals, after-school snacks, and the quiet satisfaction of a well-organized kitchen. For some, the sound of a Tupperware lid burping shut brings back a flood of memories, a reminder of the people and routines that shaped their days. Tupperware's journey mirrors the larger shifts in American society. Its rise followed the boom of consumer confidence, the growth of suburbia, and the changing role of women in public and private life. Its challenges reflect a world that moves quickly, where convenience and sustainability now shape what we value. The brand's story is not just about bowls and lids. It's about the ways people adapt, finding new meaning in familiar things as the world changes around them. There's something quietly powerful about how Tupperware became part of the background of so many lives. It didn't shout for attention, but it was always there, on the shelf, in the fridge, or at the center of a gathering. The containers themselves are simple, but their stories layered with the hopes, dreams, and realities of the people who used them, whether as a tool for saving leftovers or as a stepping stone to independence. Tupperware reflects the values and choices of the time, and while the brand faces new challenges today, its legacy endures. The Tupperware Party model changed how people thought about work, friendship, and possibility. Its design still stands as a reminder of the beauty found in everyday objects. The brand's ups and downs echo the cycles of American culture, moments of hope, periods of doubt, and the ongoing search for something better. So, as you move through your own routines, packing up dinner, reaching for a container, or recalling the laughter from a family gathering, consider the quiet influence of Tupperware. It's there in the details, in the way we organize our spaces and share our lives. Sometimes, it's the smallest things that reveal the most about us. And that brings us to a simple question, one that lingers as we look at the objects that fill our homes. How can something so ordinary come to hold so much meaning? Tupperware's journey shows how practical invention can quietly shape daily life. The 1949 patented airtight seal, still in use today, stands as a reminder of how one simple idea can last for generations. Even now, Tupperware's impact continues, with 70 refill stations in U.S. national parks diverting 11 million bottles each year. The brand's promise of reducing waste remains part of its story. As you think about your own kitchen routines, consider the role Tupperware may have played. If you have a memory, a favorite bowl, a party, or a story, share it in the comments below. Your experiences are part of this ongoing story,